Just to tell you that I'm sure most of you know, but every one of these talks I give is recorded and the video is downloaded on or uploaded on Facebook and on YouTube. It's almost like a reference library of basically all the things I talk about that you can find really at a moment's notice if you want to go to Facebook and YouTube. I think there's over 200, 250 talks that I've given there, which I think is unbelievable, that they're so ready available. Does anyone have a question I would like to ask?
Hi, Stuart.
Yes.
Several weeks ago, you mentioned in one of your talks, serve God, not people. It's become one of my favorite affirmations. Would you mind going more in depth into that? Serve God, not people.
Well, I got that from Rudi. I mean it. One day in Big Indian, there was so much craziness going on there, people with all their stuff. And I said to Rudi, what about these people? And he said, Stuart, don't worry about it. He said, in 20 years, you will be here doing this work. Every one of these people will probably be gone. And it's basically what happened. And he told me, you never serve people. You serve the Godhead in them, spirit in them. Because the very nature of people is that they change so frequently, and you never know in 5 minutes what's going to come from them. And when you begin to serve them that way, you serve kind of a transitional illusion which most people live under. You serve God, you serve spirit, you serve higher energy. It is the only constant in the universe. Everything else is in flux. It's changing all the time. And people change all the time. And, look, I always used to kid around. One day they're John Birches, and 3 years later they're communists, People just are constantly evolving and changing. And you never know what's going to come back. So it's best to find that seed of God inside the human being and just be kind to it, nice to it, and not have any, and the biggest thing is not to have any expectations about how people will function and what's going to come back to you in life. As soon as you have expectations about the way people should be, one lives in a world of great disappointment because nobody can live up to them. The interesting thing is, you can see somebody on the street and they're very beautiful and very sensuous and very wonderful looking. And my God, wouldn't it be great to be involved? And you finally get involved with that person and you discover all the layers of stuff and baggage that they carry inside them. Every human being does. They carry baggage, they carry many different layers of, their understandings and opinions and life. And as I said earlier, everything is in flux. It's all changing all the time. It's the very nature of the way energy manifests on the earth. So it's best to serve what is constant, what is endless, what is infinite in the universe, which is always there to nurture one, to give life to one. And that's higher energy, God, whatever you want to call it, higher creative energy. I learned this many years ago when I had all these big expectations of what will happen with people in this meditation. And then I was endlessly disappointed in the kind of nonsense I had to put up with people. And I finally said, Stuart, it's you, it's not them. I mean, that's the nature of the way everything manifests. It's all changing, and people have so many different layers of what they are inside that it's impossible to really serve, one without another one interfering in the process. So what the best thing to do is serve a higher force that is consistent, that is nurturing, that gives life, that everything in the world is a manifestation of that energy, not the energy itself, a manifestation of the energy. So go to the source of the energy and learn how to serve that with gratitude, with love, with, the kind of work that is necessary for one to do on oneself in order to, attain a higher level of consciousness and ability to live in the world. And to me, that really is the key to so much of how we can work out karma, because then we don't live with the expectations about how our parents are supposed to function or how our children are supposed to function. We just let life be. And when we can let life be, it is absolutely a magical, extraordinary place. And all the different changes and manifestations and layers that exist in people become endlessly fascinated instead of something that threatens us, because we have certain expectations about the way people are supposed to function. So much of the pain in life comes because we have expectations about the way people should be. And we manufacture that for ourselves. If we would just let them be and have enough detachment inside not to expect them to be any way, just as they are. I mean, there'd be a lot less pain in the world. People wouldn't do as much to hurt each other. And this I'm not saying, look, there are certain laws and moral codes and, yes, I mean, look, it's what it is. And I'm not here to judge anybody. At the same time, we don't want to hang around with people that, murder people, that are thieves, that are, junkies and, all this kind of stuff that goes on in the world. But that's part of our ability to also let life be. And not to sit in judgment of anybody else. Because it's like Christ said, who's going to throw the first stone? Who's going to, sit there and say, well, I never seduced anybody in my life. I never did this. I never stole anything. I never out somebody in the world, I mean, we're all guilty of something. And we need to, stop judging other people and just change inside ourselves. Does anyone else have a question?
I have a question, Stuart.
Yes.
I think it relates to the last thing that you were speaking of, and has to do with when we assist others, we're often called on to be honest with at least our own perspective of their growth, mm-hmm. and to let them know what needs to change. And that can feel very difficult to confront their issues because they are so defended against them. And that then you can feel very badly about yourself.
Well, look, Brenda, the answer to that is simple. I mean, if you have a relationship with somebody like that, the whole secret is to love them unconditionally. And in that love that you have for them, that kind of nurturing might help them to grow and suddenly become capable of dealing with their problems and kind of fixing their problems. You can't fix anybody else's problems unless they want to fix them. But we can love people unconditionally. We can, allow them to be. We can get big enough to find a place in our heart for them to be. And I'm not saying with everybody. There are people that are endlessly crossing boundaries and borders and doing stuff to hurt other people. And, you don't want to have people like that in your life. You don't need them. But if one is in a situation, especially with parents and children and relatives and people that are close to us, I mean, none of them are going to fit into the mold of the way we think they're supposed to function. I had that with my own family. I ran away from home practically when I was younger because I just couldn't stand the idea of growing up to be what they wanted me to be. And then ultimately the growth became so deep inside myself that it's a true story. I went home, I didn't go home, I went to my aunt's house for a Passover ceremony, which I used to go to once a year. And she came up to me and she said to me, Stuart, you're into all this stuff, which I don't understand. And, her daughter, my cousin, was sick in the hospital and the doctors had told her she had 3-4 weeks to live. I said, do you think you can do anything for your cousin? And the whole dynamic changed. I was big enough to allow her to come to me and ask me that question. And that's how the dynamic changed. And I never forget, I went to the hospital the next day. I saw my cousin. It was just I hadn't seen her in 15 years. And it was really a shock. I mean, she had a belly, she had liver cancer with a belly the size of, and she was lying in bed and she looked like she was ready to die. And I said to her, this is kind of a heartbreaking story. I said to her, do you want to live? And she said, yes. And I started doing the healing work with her that I learned from Rudi, that he trained me in. And, I'm talking like 2 weeks later, the cancer went into complete remission and she walked out of the hospital. And she was running around to everybody at Sloan Kettering Hospital, telling them, you got to get my cousin to work on you. It's unbelievable what he does. I said, Sandy, stop. I don't want to spend the rest of my life, in the cancer ward at Sloan Kettering Hospital, So anyway, as she was leaving the hospital, I said to her, look, why don't you come to Texas, spend 6 months, I'll train you in this. And you'll be able to use this for the rest of your life. And you'll be able to keep yourself healed. Oh, I have a husband, I have children. How can I go to Texas? And I said, look, it's up to you, but I'm willing to, you can come live in my house. I have a very beautiful house there. You can come live in my house. Oh no, I can't come, I can't go. And a year later she died. But it was like a miracle. She walked out of the hospital. The doctors thought she was, she had a month to live, 3 weeks to live. I've had this experience many times with people doing healing work. And then after they're healed, it's the decisions they make about the way they want to live their life that determines whether or not they're going to live or die. And I learned to stop judging or even talking them into coming to Texas when I was living there, or I said, Stuart, they have to make that decision. It is not my thing to interfere with birth, and it's not my thing to interfere with death. Because it's something organic that everybody has to go through. And that's their decision they have to make.
Thank you. That was wonderful, wonderful response. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Stuart, I have a question. You've said that before, the commitment to one's family, like parents, working out the karma with the people closest to you. So are you saying the main difference is that people who aren't in that immediate circle is more of like you can just wish them well but not interact, but the people around you like stay interacting? Like, just so I understand the difference.
The difference is that, look, they gave birth to you. You gave birth to your children. You understand? You were the seed through which your children come into the world. You have a karmic responsibility to love them unconditionally. You know, the same thing with your parents. They gave birth. I mean, I once wrote in one of my books, they're your parents. No matter what they did to you, you have to love them anyway. And doing that will just get a person very strong. Because look, the one thing we have to all learn is our parents are just human beings. You know, our children are just human beings. They all have limitations. They all have problems. But we live in a world where you think our parents are like gods, you know? They're never supposed to do anything wrong. And they do. But learning to love them unconditionally will just produce an amazingly strong person inside yourself. And that's the key to it, because that kind of inner strength enables you to have a spiritual life. You know, when it comes to cousins and uncles and friends and businesses, so, I mean, my God, they just come and go, you know? And yeah, some of them are closer to us. And yes, there has to be a deeper love there. But we can't go around thinking that we're going to save the human race. You know, we have to understand that the only way people get saved in this world is they have to learn how to work on themselves. And that happened with me and my cousins and aunts and all these people that are in my life. And I just learned how to love them for what they were. And I used to listen to all the bullshit they talked about and the nonsense. It didn't bother me. It used to bother me when I was younger. I told you, I ran away from home. I had to get away from my home because I couldn't stand it anymore. I said, no, Stuart, who am I to judge you? That is what their lives are. And their lives are a manifestation of God's energy. And I have to respect that and not judge them. It made it so much easier to deal with my family. You know, I wasn't annoyed anymore when they talked about all the stuff they used to talk about, you know? And I would say, okay, I'll never forget my mother. It was so funny. She calls me up one day. This is a true story. She said, Stuart, you never call me, you never call me, you never call me. I called her like 3 days before. You never call me, you never call me, you never call me. And she's going on and on. And I said, Stuart, look, it's just her tension. Don't, you know, it's nothing. So I said, okay, Ma, look, all right. She said, okay. And she said, all right, Ma, look, we'll talk again. I promise you I'll call you. I waited about 5 seconds and I called her. She picked up, hello. I said, Ma, it's your son, Stuart. How are you doing? I hope everything is okay. And that your friend started to laugh. You know, she just cracked up laughing and it just broke down all the tension. Just broke down the tension. And then when the conversation finished, I said, and I'll call you. Yeah, but not in 5 seconds. You'll never forget that. You know, it broke the whole tension down. Instead of getting upset at her and, oh my God, my mother, and she's yelling at me and she's nudging me and she's driving me crazy. I just, all right, what is the big deal? Called her back and she started to laugh. And we had a great conversation. We laughed a lot. And it just broke the whole thing up. And, you know, I've learned to do that with a lot of people, you know, friends. I used to do it in business all the time, you know? I mean, with stuff like that. I remember once I had this very rich client. The guy was worth, I mean, this is in the early 90s, worth about 15, $20 billion, you know? And I had a statue that I wanted to show him that was perfect for his collection. It was an extraordinary statue, unbelievable statue. So he comes to my loft and I show him the stuff. No, he comes out of the elevator. I had a private elevator into the loft, bitching and complaining about everything in the world. Everything. There was nothing right in the world. And I finally couldn't listen to him anymore. And I said, look, what the fuck are you bitching about? You were just born into this. I mean, it was the right sperm, for God's sake. Stop complaining. And he looks at me and he says, you want it? And I just cracked up. I said, you're going to give it to me? I mean, it was like, you got to just find the humor in things and not get crazy with other people's craziness, because people have so much bullshit. They can drive you up the wall, but you got to find the humor in situations and, what enables you to break them down and find something that keeps you from allowing them to just drain all your energy out of you, So yeah, all of this works. But when it comes to mothers and fathers and children, I mean, unconditional, doesn't matter what the hell they do, you have to love them unconditionally. Does anyone else have a question?
Hi, Stuart. Thank you for that unbelievable story and explanation. And going back to your previous answer, this cousin that then passed, and then it reminded me of Leah, and you sharing that we do it for God, not for the people. And thank you for those examples. So this way, not to lose heart, right? As if you've done so much work and then someone turns away anyway. It's not about that. It goes higher. And that's, I now understand how to get energy to just keep going. So I appreciate so much your sharing. This is so invaluable.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Look, I wrote that book, Leah, for a simple reason. Yes, it's an extraordinary story, but I wrote it as a way of showing how God's work, manifests in the world, how it heals, and then you have to deal with the human equation. You understand? And that's where all the problems come in. It's the human equation. God's energy will heal. It'll heal people. It healed me, for God's sake. And when I remember what I was like when I was 20 years old, it healed me, that energy. I mean, I know there's other people here who've had cancer that this meditation has healed. And it's, that's basically what I'm trying to give here, is look, that higher energy is an energy of healing. It's an energy of, it's an energy so extraordinary. The human mind can never understand it. And it really takes care of almost all the problems that exist inside people. Because in order for that energy to get into us, we have to get free of all our problems. So we need our job is to build a system that allows that energy to come into us. And then all of that neurosis, anxiety, all the problems, the tensions, they begin to vanish. There'll always be some, because nobody's perfect. So, that's, frankly, it's why I do just about everything in my life today. So I don't know any other answers. And it's a compilation of hundreds and hundreds, and if not thousands of experiences that made it possible for me to evolve inside and to get to a place to be able to do this. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome. Okay, if there are no more questions, thank you and bless you all. And I just always end saying this, maybe I'm beginning to sound like a broken record, I don't know. But, you know, I'm just deeply grateful to be here and to be involved in this, because every time I have one of these classes, I feel so much in me change and grow. And all of you are here, you know, to participate in this. And I can't tell you how much gratitude I have. So God bless you all. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Class on Tuesday, no, Monday, tomorrow. I don't know what the day is. Yeah, tomorrow. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. Have a good, wonderful evening and bless you. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Stuart. Good night, Stuart.
Thank
Good night.
you. Thank you. Good night.
Be well.